right. I have been requested to put together an infinity bottle of the bottles that had been in storage for over 10 years. 9 of them had been opened before, and they had been opened for all that time, and one of them had been sealed. And unfortunately, that one also was slightly corked. I have 1 dram from each of the 10 bottles right here in this 10 plus infinity bottle. And this is one of the bottles that was in there, but I've added a dram of each of the 10 bottles. They are obviously the Maker's Mark, the Jim Beam white label, the what else have we got? Gibson's Finest 12-year-old, Glenmorangie Origin, the original 10-year-old Glenmorangie, Dalwhinnie 15, Tobermory on non-age statement. There was an open 14 in there. There was a Talisker 10. There was a Lagavulin 16. And I think that's all of them. Yeah. Anyway, 10 of them. There's 10 drams in here. And I'm going to try this infinity bottle of bottles that have been stored for over 10 years. Some of them were corked. Some of them, thankfully, were not corked. Some of them had a plastic cap like this one. And there's a lot to be said for plastic caps. If you're going to keep bottles for longer than a decade, longer than 5 years even. I think after a decade, the corks just fall apart. Unless there's some kind of specific cork with, incredible DNA that keep them together. But here we go. This is the golden elixir liquid that is the culmination of 10 years in storage. Some having been opened, one having been sealed, but slightly corked because the cork fell apart. There's a couple bourbons in here. There's a Canadian whiskey. There's some scotches. No Irish. But every scotch was a single malt. On the nose, this jungle juice is kind of flat. Oh, and look, there's a piece of cork in there. You get that out. Oh, how did that get in there? Yeah. There it is. I got the piece of cork. That must have been because I didn't use the strainer when I poured everything in there. I might get cork stuck between my teeth again. It's been a interesting little evening. I did some editing, and I had a gin and tonic when I got home for my groceries. I had about three from the Macallan 10 Fine Oak. I just couldn't help myself. And this is my first from this mixture of all of these whiskeys that had been in storage for over 10 years. Like I said, 9 of them had been opened already, and the one that had been sealed didn't do any better than the ones that had been opened. Well, okay, a couple of the ones that had been opened were really awful. And the The Macallan was okay, but a little bit corked. There's a lot to be said for glass stoppers and plastic screw tops. A lot to be said. Mm. Bits of cork. You know, with the contributions of the bourbons, it's not so bad. The bourbons actually help it. While the scotches kind of go flat, especially the peated ones. The bourbons that are mixed in here kind of stay true to themselves. Hopefully I don't get any more cork stuck between my teeth. Yeah, you know, this isn't half bad when it's all these flat scotches mixed in with a bit of bourbon that's still got some bite to it. I'm still getting cork, yes, but I am getting also some interesting taste of bourbon. I'm getting a bit of corn sweetness. I'm getting some rye. And since the maker's mark was a wheated bourbon, I'm getting some of that as well. Some of that whole wheat bread kind of thing. You know, with all of these mixed together, it makes a more pleasant drink than some of them by themselves. And I'd say that it's almost as good as the best of the bunch. And the best of the bunch to me was the Gibson's Finest 12-year-old. Somehow that one did best under storage conditions. And the one that did worst was the Glenmorangie 10-year-old. Or was it the Tobermory non-age statement? Those two both had bad corks. But this is, yeah, it's drinkable if you don't mind a bit of cork. Well, this concludes the experiment of tasting and trying out whiskeys that had been in storage for over 10 years, 9 of which were opened already, and 1 of which was still sealed. And the sealed one didn't do any better than the ones that were opened already. Once again, my bit of advice with regards to this experiment is finish your bottles in a timely manner. That way you won't have to suffer corked bottles corked whiskey and faded fruits and peat. If you're going to store them for a long time, I suggest you gas them. Otherwise, I'd say finish them within a year or two. And make that a year for peated whiskey, 2 years for unpeated whiskey. Beyond that, I can't say. I haven't experimented exactly at which point whiskey in general reaches its peak. Because yes, they do get better as after they've been opened, for the most part. Although some are really great from the get-go. When whiskey has been opened for a long time, generally it ain't no good. So yeah, finish them within a year or two. That way you won't suffer. You won't have breaking corks. You won't have corked whiskey. You won't have faded peat smoke. And you will have a much more enjoyable and pleasant experience. And here's to your very good health.
Food Quig.
Food Quig.
Food Quig.
Food Quig.
Food Quig.
Yeah.